Folks, what if I told you that the ceasefire deal between Iran and the United States was a trap? It was a genius move by President Trump to disarm one of the most hostile forces in the Middle East. Now, why don't you stick with me, okay? Because what I'm about to tell you is not being reported by the mainstream media. Heck, it's not even being reported by the media on the conservative side of the aisle. And it's because they're both concerned about their special interests. One wants to discredit the president, and the other, well, they're fighting for, their buddies in foreign countries, okay? And they can't see this playing out in real time. Now, go back to 4 days ago. An Iranian drone hit a cargo ship coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, and the media right away started calling it another flare-up, another tit for tat. They started doubting President Trump's negotiating skills and started asking whether the ceasefire was going to hold. But really, they missed the point completely. They had no idea what just happened. Folks, let me tell you what happened. The most feared military arm in Iran, the Revolutionary Guard, they completely exposed themselves. Now, folks, as you know, I'm a military veteran. Spent 23 years working in nuclear power, ran for Congress, endorsed by President Trump. America first, 1,000%. I've been in the room. I understand how the president operates. He's a strategic-minded dude. And I'm here to tell you that he allowed this reconstitution at Qeshm Island intentionally. He knew the weapons program was being rebuilt, but he also knew something more important than that. I'm going to get to all of it, but before I do, let me tell you exactly what I'm going to walk you through so you can know what you're going to expect. And I want you to hold me accountable for this, okay? Now, number one, the peace deal Trump signed 2 weeks ago, and the one detail in it that was designed to fail. Number two, why the IRGC had no choice but to take Trump's bait. Number three, what they exposed when they did. And look, it's bigger than anyone on this platform or any platform is talking about. And number four, the crack inside Iran's own government that just blew wide open. Now, if you care about whether this country has a strategy in the Middle East or whether they're just stumbling around, stick with me to the end, okay? Coming out of this video, you're going to be a lot smarter than most people. And you're going to see this the way the people running this see it. And pretty amazing, okay? Let's go back to June 17th. Trump flies to Versailles after G7. And over dinner, he signs the Memorandum of Understanding with the President of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. It's supposed to end the war, reopen the strait, toll-free, 60 days. And Iran would clear its mines. The U.S. would lift its blockade, and Iran would get sanctions relief. The 60-day clock would start on the nuclear question. On paper, this was a historic deal. Okay? The war that started back in February, that took out the old supreme leader in the opening salvo, finally winding down. Trump stick to his word. No forever war. Israel's happy. Kinda. Here's the thing. Nobody in the mainstream media even realized that Trump signed that deal with the wrong man. Okay, Masoud Pezeshkian is the civilian president, folks. He's a reformist. He's the guy they put in the window. Okay, but in Iran, the president doesn't control the guns. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps does. The IRGC. And the IRGC doesn't answer to the president. They answer to the supreme leader and the security camp around it. So think about that and think about what Trump actually did. Made a big mess out of it, right? Media was all over. J.D. Vance had to leave, go to Switzerland. They stopped, started. But Trump got a signature, and he did from a man who can enforce it. Now, you can call that a rookie mistake, or you can look behind the curtain and ask the questions that I did. What if that was the point? What if it was a front? Because when you sign a deal with somebody who can't deliver it, you've done one of two things. You've either wasted your time or you've built yourself a trap. You've created a piece of paper that the real power in Iran is now on record violating. And the second they do what they were always going to do, you're the victor. You get to hold them accountable. And the Revolutionary Guard was always going to do exactly what they're doing. Okay, now here's the mechanism, and I need you to listen closely because this is the part that the news just doesn't get. Okay, after the deal, we started moving commercial ships back through the Strait of Hormuz. But we didn't, run them through the route that Iran wanted. Now, if you recall, Iran said anybody who wants safe passage needs to run their ships through our waters, close to our coast, coordinated through us. That was their play, okay? Control the strait, control the leverage, and look, the IRGC even renamed it. They started calling the strait a vast operational area, and that's not a shipping lane to them. It was a toll booth. So, look, what does the U.S. do? Okay, we clear a different corridor out along the Omani coast. We sweep the mines. We set up a safe passage, and we route the ships through there, bypassing Iran entirely. Now, put yourself in the shoes of an IRGC commander. The Americans just opened a lane that says your toll booth is closed, that your operational area means nothing. Every ship that sails that Omani route is a daily public humiliation. They can't let that stand. Their entire reason for existence is on the line. So on the 25th, they put a one-way attack drone into the side of a cargo ship called the Ever Lovely. That happened right as it's transitioning that corridor. And the second they did that, they handed President Trump exactly what he was waiting for. Because now, it's not Trump breaking the ceasefire, it's Iran. On the record, caught attacking a civilian ship, and the response writes itself. CENTCOM goes in and strikes Iranian missile storage, drone facilities, coastal radar, and they did it because the Guard threw the first punch, but Trump threw the last one. And the whole world watched. They watched the IRGC do this. That's not a flare-up. It was a setup, working exactly as President Trump designed. Now, here's where my background kicks in, and where I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to hear from the clip channels or the cable shows. Okay, when CENTCOM hit those sites, a senior U.S. defense official confirmed something to Fox News. Iran had reconstituted. And that means they rebuilt its air defense and missile systems. And they did that at Qeshm Island, at Sirik, okay? The exact sites we'd already bombed back in the spring. Now, after the April ceasefire, they quietly went back in and stood all of that back up. And the media reported that, as a footnote, okay, Iran rebuilt some defenses. Now, let me tell you exactly what that means, okay? Because I've been in the service, okay? I've spent 20 plus years in the nuclear power industry. I understand weapons grade material and the systems that protect it. All right. When a state pauses a weapons program, a real one like Iran had, there's a tell that the experts watch for. It's not whether they keep enriching, it's whether they keep the delivery and protection layer alive. The missiles, the air defense, the radars, the launch infrastructure. Because the warhead is the easy part to hide. The hard part, the part that takes months and money and exposure, from air, okay, is everything that carries it and everything that protects it. And that is exactly what Iran rebuilt. The moment the bombing stopped, you don't pour that kind of effort back into missile systems and coastal air defense at the same two islands that we just flattened during a ceasefire while you're at the table negotiating. That is, unless you fully intend to keep the option. And that's not a country winding down. That's a country resetting the board and hoping that we don't see. Now, Trump was counting on this. And every time the IRGC stuck its neck out to enforce the strait, they don't just give us a legal reason to strike. They give us a fresh targeting picture to rebuild everything. Okay? And we get to see that. The Guard thinks it's projecting some strength. What it's actually doing is lighting up its own arsenal. And it's inviting us to come back in and take it down. That's the genius of this. That's the part that nobody with a camera and an opinion can explain, unless they've stood inside this world. Now, here's the second thing, okay, that this trap did. And this one might matter more than these missiles. Okay, it split Iran's leadership in half, right in the public. Remember Pezeshkian that I talked about? Okay, the president who signed the deal, the one that, was talking trash about President Trump. Yeah. According to the reporting that's coming out of Iran, he's pissed. Okay, he called the IRGC's escalation, and look, I want you to hear the word that he used. He called him madness. Okay, and sources are saying that he's actually considered resigning, and he's demanded an emergency meeting with the supreme leader, and doing so because he wants to try to force the Guard to stand down. The civilian president of Iran is begging his own military to stop, but they're ignoring him. Now think about what that says. The man that Trump signed the deal with wants the deal, and the men who are blowing it up don't answer to him. So now you've got the president of Iran on one side saying, we can't survive another war, and the Revolutionary Guard on the other side firing ballistic missiles at our bases and running drones into civilian ships in Kuwait, Bahrain, the Strait. And this is just this weekend. That's a government at war with itself. And it's happening in front of the entire world with a 60-day nuclear clock ticking in the background. Now, you want to weaken an army without firing the first shot? You get their leadership and their hardliners to expose themselves. And you get their moderates to panic. And you let the whole world watch those two factions tear each other apart. The IRGC thinks that it's defending Iranian sovereignty. What it's actually doing is proving to every mediator at the table that nobody in Tehran is actually in control. And a regime that can't control itself has no leverage. None. None to negotiate with, at least. So, where does this actually lead to? Yeah, there's three ways this can break. Number one, the Guard will back down, and Pezeshkian will win the internal fight, and the IRGC will swallow their pride, take the humiliation, and the Strait will stay open on Donald Trump's terms. And the nuclear talks will limp forward. I'd put that as probably the least likely, because the Guard has never once backed down, especially when its prestige was on the line. Number two, it escalates. The IRGC keeps swinging, and Trump makes good on the line that he posted this weekend. And I'll read it to you exactly. He said that there may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable. The Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist. Not a dude that's bluffing. That's a man who's already built the justification, already has the targeting data, and is telling you he's ready to finish it. Possibility 3, and this is the one I'd actually bet on. It grinds. There's some slow degradation, all under the cover of a ceasefire enforcement. Every IRGC provocation gets answered with a strike on rebuilt infrastructure. Bit by bit, Trump takes them apart. Everything they stood back up. And we do it with the moral high ground and precision every single time, because they keep throwing the first punch. We don't invade. No declaration of war, just a Revolutionary Guard that gets a little weaker every week, a regime that fractures a little more and a little more every time it happens. I don't see that as chaos, okay? Whether you love the man or hate him, I know exactly where he stands, okay? This is a strategy, and it's working. And I was beginning to doubt, but now I see it, okay? Look, I can tell you for certain, I can't tell you for certain whether every piece of this was planned in a war room or that Trump just read the board. But he did whatever he did it better than Iran did. And he used it to press his advantage. And honestly, with this stuff, the result's the same either way. The IRGC is exposed, the regime is split, and he holds the cards. But I can tell you this, because I've lived in the world where these decisions get made, and I know the decision makers, okay? The people who only see that this is another flare-up in Iran are watching the wrong thing. The real story isn't the drone or the cargo ship or anything else. It's what Iran rebuilt when it was promising peace and who just walked into the open trying to defend it. So listen, folks, I appreciate you checking out the channel. I hope you enjoyed the content. And if it's of value to you, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Helps us America First folks defeat the algorithm that it's not appreciative of good content. So this week, join me as we watch President Trump hopefully put this to rest. And boy, oh boy, guy's working magic. And Shouldn't have doubted him. Shouldn't have doubted him. Have a good weekend.